first test in Johannesburg brought New Zealand their best ever win against South Africa by 137 runs. It was only their third win in 18 test matches, which go right back to the early 1930s. It came on one of the best and fairest cricket pitches I've seen in a long, long time. And after 3 days, neither side could get their noses in front. And then as the pitch started to deteriorate, the value of Ken Rutherford's winning the toss became apparent. And eventually New Zealand went on to clinch a dominant victory, thanks mainly to greater batting strength in depth and also bowling. The batting key to the win on as fair a cricket pitch as I've seen in years was the achievement of Thompson, Perori, Hart and the rest of the tail in taking New Zealand from 280 for 7 to 411 in the first innings and from 34 for 5 to 194 in the second innings. The South African middle order matched those efforts in the first innings when Richardson's top score of 93 took his side from 148 for 6, and even worse, 197 for 8 to 279. But, crucially in the second innings, the home side lost their last 8 wickets for 61. Left-arm spinner Hart, he took a career best 5 for 77, and man of the match Simon Doull took 4 for 33 to give him match figures of 6 for 103 to go with his 45 runs for twice not out. For the first 3.5 days, the pitch offered some assistance to bowlers, but the true surface, together with a lightning outfield, still enabled batsmen to score over 1,000 runs in the first 4 days. Rutherford, well, he won an important toss. His top orders survived a pre-lunch session in which they might have lost several wickets, and then his 68, 56 of them in boundaries, and a polished 83 from Crowe established a platform from which their side reached 411. Without Alan Donald, the home attack was willing but lacked the firepower to get through a determined lower order in which Thompson top-scored with 84, and the icing on the cake came from a cracking run-a-ball 10th wicket stand of 57 between Doull and de Groen. Good seam bowling then by Nash and de Groen had South Africa in trouble at 73 for 4, with the one flash of controversy in an otherwise good-spirited contest coming with the dismissal of Hudson. He walked, despite no appeal, to a claimed catch by wicket-keeper Perori, although his teammates and Bob Woolmer signalled to the confused opener to return to the crease and force an appeal. Television evidence suggested it was not a clean catch. Cullinan's 58 led a recovery completed by Richardson, and his 93 came out of 132 scored while he was at the crease. Well, a lead of 132 looked crucial, until a game full of twists and turns produced the greatest drama of all. A devastating spell from de Villiers of 3 for 1 in 9 balls to plunge New Zealand to 34 for 5, effectively 166 for 5, with a distinguished trio of scalps in Crowe and Rutherford, both the Ducks and Brian Young. One more push and South Africa might have got their noses in front for the first time, but for the second time in the match, Thompson played well for 29, and Perori's 49 restored New Zealand's advantage. It was stirring stuff, and despite a career best of 5 for 42 from Matthews, New Zealand was still able to set a target of 327, which has only been bettered to win a test match 8 times in history. While McMillan and Cronje were together, victory was possible, but marginal LBW decisions against McMillan and Rhodes, both given by Zimbabwean umpire Ian Robinson, started a terminal collapse which even Cronje's 62 in his first match as captain couldn't prevent. On the final morning, the cracked pitch was treacherous. It had earlier been a major factor in producing what was a magnificent test match. Highlights included the all-round performances of both wicket-keepers, Richardson and Perori, and a stunning catch in the gully by Crowe to dismiss Cullinan in the second innings. In the last 12 months, South Africa have played 4 3-match series, starting this one against New Zealand, back-to-back ones against Australia, and one in England. And in those first 3, South Africa took the lead 1-0, and each time they were pegged back to finish all square. Now, for the first time in 12 months, they find themselves 1-0 down, and that's a position from which no side in history has ever come back to win the series. Well, beautiful Cape Town and lovely Newlands, where South Africa had to create history by taking a dramatic 3-match series against New Zealand. In order to win the back-to-back tests at Kingsmead over Christmas and then Newlands here over New Year, they had to do something which had only been done once before by England in 1888, That's win a 3-match series after losing the first game. So South Africa became the first side to do that in 107 years. South Africa squared the series in Durban by an 8-wicket margin, and that after a fluctuating match in which neither side could claim an advantage in the first 3 days. The pitch, prepared by former Derbyshire player and coach Phil Russell, that was good enough to make a mockery of a match aggregate of only 756 runs, with the home side's first innings total of 226, the only innings of 4 to top 200. A combination of poor batting, moderate umpiring and a freakish run out of Perori all combined to produce a game in which only Thompson aggregated over 100 and only 2 other batsmen, Young and Cronje, passed 50. For New Zealand, Ken Rutherford had a nightmare of a match. He needed to introduce much-needed stability to a top order which never inspired confidence, yet twice pulled suicidally to Cummins at mid-wicket for Norton 6. Well, though South Africa bowled, they never should have taken 20 wickets in only 182 overs. But the New Zealand batting deteriorated alarmingly from a first innings platform of 62 for 2 on day 1. The 3rd and 4th wickets to fall were those of Crowe and Rutherford, with the manner of both dismissals plunging their side onto a slippery slope from which they never recovered. South African team talks had evolved a game plan to try to bounce Crowe out with short pitch bowling aimed outside off stump, not middle and off, from where he still pulls in front of square with massive authority. Debutant Stephen Jack, he forced the error, and Fanie de Villiers took a beautifully judged catch at long leg off an horrendous swirler. The crime of that dismissal was immediately compounded by Rutherford, and when opener Murray went to a beauty from de Villiers, the score was 66 for 5, and 3 top batsmen had gone for 4 runs in 6 overs. Perori, Hart and Doull followed in the next hour. All to Macmillan, but then for the second successive test, Shane Thompson topped 80, and with Morrison dropping anchor for 29 overs and over 2 hours for an unbeaten 24, New Zealand recovered from 114 for 8 to 185 all out. Surely not enough, yet it would have been but for Davy Richardson. Yet again he faced a crisis at 141 for 6 in the 53rd over, and yet again he shamed his top order with an unfussed, solid, unbeaten 39, significantly top score, despite 3 of the first 5 South Africans scoring 29 or more. Morrison marked his return to Test cricket with 4 good wickets, and Doull's 5 for 73 was his 3rd such haul in 9 Test matches. But de Villiers conquered both in his 28 off 55 deliveries, all scored out of 44 for a crucial 10th wicket partnership. Such a stand was always likely to be important in a low-scoring game, and so it proved, with New Zealand losing Murray, Rutherford and Crowe before the arrears were cleared. Rutherford inexcusably pulled Macmillan to mid-wicket. That was 11 for 2. And then Crowe was given out caught behind off an inside edge which swung after passing the stumps from leg to off. Ballistically possible but highly improbable. Opener Young bedded down to play what was to be the 3rd slowest Test 50 in history, behind Trevor Bailey and Chris Tavares. But once he went to a magnificent gully catch by Cullinan off Macmillan after sticking like glue for over 5.5 hours for his 51, the match tilted towards South Africa. Perori suffered the closest call yet referred to a 3rd umpire, and even though Morrison again showed up his so-called betters with an application they lacked, the final total of 192 was never enough unless New Zealand made early inroads. They could have done, but umpire Hyatt unaccountably gave Cummins not out LBW to Morrison at the start of the final day. Easily the most inexplicable decision I've seen in covering 70 Test matches on television. Kirsten and Cullinan nailed down a win which was deserved, but only came about because of New Zealand batting deficiencies and poor umpiring. 71 overs were lost to bad light, yet the match still ended before lunch on the final day. And so to the grand finale at Newlands, and almost unbelievably it seemed that New Zealand had learnt not one single lesson from that defeat at Kingsmead. New Zealand started in nightmarish fashion after twice Murray astonishingly survived LBW appeals from de Villiers by courtesy of Sri Lankan umpire KT Francis. Finally he was given out plum LBW, and then Perori, fresh from his Durban debacle of a run-out, was run out second ball by half the length of the pitch. Apparently he lost the fielder Steyn in the crowd background after the second run. His call of wait to partner Young went missing in the fierce crosswind, and the result was a second bizarre run-out in 5 days, which apparently provoked some dressing room damage which did not go unnoticed by the Western Province club. at 96 for 5, except for Young, who clearly hit the one he was adjudged LBW to. New Zealand only had themselves to blame. But half-centuries from Rutherford and Fleming took them to 211 for 6 at the close, with the Kiwi captain spoiling it because for the third successive innings he got out to a missed pull. On the second day, Fleming, having gone from number 3 via 5 to number 7, was finally bowled for 78 by the aggressive Jack, whose 3 wickets in 11 balls took the score from 244 for 6 to 254 for 9. That most genuine of Test number 11s, Chris Pringle, he hit an improbable career best 30, but 288 was only a good score if Hart and Thompson could exploit the turning pitch. Kirsten and debutant Rudy Steyn put on 106 for the first wicket, the first opening partnership for South Africa to top 50 in 11 innings. Thompson flattered briefly with the wickets of both openers and Cullinan in 4 overs of threatening off-spin. But then Cronje's 112, his 4th Test 100, started a squeeze on New Zealand's winning chances, which was completed by Richardson's maiden Test 100, and that was only the 4th of his first-class career. The New Zealanders thought they had Cronje caught behind early in the innings, and then on 59 he was dropped by Hart, a Sittert mid-wicket off Dool.
Would you believe it? Well, Simon Dool can't. Dear me, that could be costly.
Richardson joined his captain at 271 for 6 and underlined his claims to be the best wicketkeeper batsman in world cricket with a lovely 109. He batted for just over 5 hours and was at the crease for 74 overs, in which his runs came from 165 scored off the bat. The combined analysis of Hart and Thompson, 6 for 206 from 85 overs, reflected their inexperience, and with 64 overs batting to survive on day 4, all New Zealand could do was to fight for their lives and sell themselves dearly. Unaccountably, Perrault and Crowe were caught hooking before Rutherford offered no stroke and was given out LBW by umpire Lamson, and that was a dismissal which led to the Kiwi captain being heavily fined 75% of his match fee and also receiving a suspended sentence from referee Burge of 2 Test matches for dissent both on and off the field. At 121 for 4 overnight, New Zealand still had hopes of saving the game, and despite losing Young, another one out hooking, and Thompson to a run-out which for sheer bizarreness matched that of Perrault in the Durban Test.
Thompson stood there posing. Watch now how in walks Hansie Cronje, and he's standing there, feet outside the crease, and still he hasn't even seen or looked at Hansie Cronje.
Hansie Cronje looking a little undecided as to whether he's actually done the right thing there, but of course he's done the right thing. That ball might have rolled back to the keeper, he takes the bails off, there's no difference, whichever which way you look at it.
They were still well placed at 224 for 7, that gave them a lead of 72 with 45 overs left, but the 8th wicket partnership between Fleming and Dool was looking dangerous and had already produced 51 runs. Then de Villiers struck brilliantly and wiped out the last 3 wickets for 2 runs in 11 balls. That included Fleming for his second 50 of the game, and that after being given out by Lamson and then being recalled before he left the field, with the South African fielders still celebrating what they thought was a bat-pad catch.
There's discussion between the umpires. Looks like he's been called back.
Well, that's amazing. Watch carefully now. It hits the flap of the pad. Up it goes. Now, what does it get on? It looks as though it might have hit the helmet as well there. Umpire Lamson is quite entitled to change his mind, and he went and conferred with umpire Katie Francis and has decided to do so. He's called him back.
South Africa scored the 89 they needed without fuss, although it was a mystery how Kirsten escaped the attention of Burge for dissent at his LBW decision.
He's given him out. Gary Kirsten can't believe it. Umpire Lamson hangs his head.
Verdict on the series: South Africa's traditional resilience and mental toughness won 2 Test matches, neither of which the New Zealanders should have lost. Neither side batted well in a series which always gripped, and it gripped mainly because of batting shortcomings on trustworthy pitches. So there we are. South Africa lost all 3 tosses in the series. They lost the first Test match, and yet somehow they came back to win 2-1. They did it because of a mental toughness and resilience which New Zealand could never match. And now I think South Africa are playing cricket. It's almost like arm wrestling. Nothing comes easy to them. But inch by inch they battle and fight and struggle for an advantage, and once they've widened that, they found the happy knack of turning it into victory.